A republic is not a democracy, and a democracy is not a republic. Article 4 of the Constitution guarantees we have the right to live under a republican form of government. It is mandated in our Constitution that that be the case. This image on your screen is what a republican form of government looks like. 50 independent states with 50 governors, 50 houses of representatives, 50 senates, 50 Supreme Courts, governing themselves independently and granting to the federal government certain limited powers. Anything beyond is unconstitutional, null and void, and of no effect. This is the argument that Florida has been making for the last year. And this is why things are so very different in the state of Florida versus the state of Michigan, Pennsylvania, California, etc. Those who have been living under the delusion that we are one country, we are America, are now having their wake-up call, and they don't like it, not one bit. Lycurgus of Sparta said that city is well fortified, which has a wall of men instead of brick. Sun Tzu said the opportunity of defeating the enemy is providing the enemy himself, and make no mistake, we have an enemy within our borders. Now, how do we go about destroying that enemy? Well, the best way to destroy an enemy is to make him a friend, Abraham Lincoln. And when the time comes, revenge is a dish best served cold. Many have said that, but I'm sure most of you remember it from The Wrath of Khan. Now, I'm sure a lot of you are asking, Florida Maquis, that's all great and fine. What are you talking about? This is from CNN. This is their tacit admission that they are losing and are going to continue to lose. Analysis by Ronald Brownstein. It's not just voting in COVID, how red states are overriding their blue cities. Now, they're specifically trying to take a hit piece out on Florida here. They mention a couple other states, but this is really about Florida. And Florida understanding what the Constitution says and how it works. CNN. Republican-controlled states have escalated their offensive against Democrat-controlled cities and counties this year to unprecedented heights, further deepening the trench between red and blue America. See what they did there? See, it's not an offensive, it's a defensive. See, the Democrats have been trying to get rid of our Constitution and trying to rule by fiat from Washington, D.C. for years. And now the states are saying enough is enough and throwing them out. From Key West, Florida to Bozeman, Montana, from Atlanta to Houston, local communities, predominantly governed by Democrats, have seen more of their policy decisions overridden by Republican legislatures and governors. The surge of state preemption began with aggressive efforts by Republican governors to override local public health rules. See, this is where the author doesn't really understand division of power. During the CV, you know what. But in this year's legislative session, it has spread to cover a panoramic range of issues. GOP-run states, meaning GOP-elected states, have reversed local decisions on everything from voting rules to police funding levels, from policies on homelessness and energy to zoning and fees on developers. In Key West case, the Republican-controlled Florida legislature even overturned a local ballot initiative barring giant cruise ships from docking in the small community. Now, this is hilarious coming from people, liberals, that literally 5 seconds ago were begging the federal government, i.e. Joe Biden, to issue a national mask mandate overriding the governors of the states. Now, what is so specific to Florida about this? What the writer here doesn't understand is that in Florida, we don't have local health departments. Some states do. I believe Indiana is one of those that has county health departments. They have a different health department in each county. Public health is a state function in Florida. It's not a local function. So local people saying this, that, and the other can or cannot occur based on health advice gotten from the CDC is not going to override the decisions of the state, our state, because we elect those people. Quote, the level of preemption is only growing, says Brooks Rainwater, whatever, like that's a real name, director of the Center for City Solutions at the National League of Cities. We are just seeing this happen all throughout the country. The increased frequency of preemption dramatizes the widening political divide between large metropolitan areas, which are voting increasingly Democrat in virtually every state, and exurban, small town, and rural areas, which have become the contrasting foundation of the GOP coalition. Now, here's where the big lie is revealed. They want everyone to believe that most of America lives in cities. They don't. Most of America lives in the rural areas and the suburban areas. And that's the truth. And that's what's happening. And we are now taking advantage of the Republican form of government we are guaranteed. They have tried to use social media and news outlets and different tactics to make everyone believe they are far more populous and predominant than what they really are. They are the little man behind the curtain, as I have said before. And they are being defeated now en masse across the country. CNN is admitting it. They go on and on and on about this. In Texas, more in Florida, something in Montana. Now, some might say, Florida Maquis, you've said you're a libertarian. Don't you believe in small government? I believe in appropriate government. See, when a local mayor decides to be a tyrant over his people and force them to wear masks based on his relationship, like in, for example, Palm Beach, with the federal government, going totally against state guidelines, you see, that's not going to work for Florida. Your local government has to act in your interest, not in the interest of powers over and above that of the state. That's why our governor stepped in. And oh, by the way, CNN Business, tracking America's recovery. The darker the state over here, the better you're doing. Florida, 101% back to normal. Idaho, 100% back to normal. South Dakota, 106% back to normal. You see, having this advantage, having this lead, is going to change things. Some also might ask, how did Florida do it? Florida was always one of these on-the-cusp states that was one way or the other way, very close. When we took a page out of their playbook. This is a story from Politico. Democrat who ran Florida's pandemic response blasts Rebecca Jones for running a disinformation campaign. You see, D.C. had people inside Florida ready to be traitors, ready to commit treason against our governor. And we found them out. And instead of just announcing that we knew they were there, we decided to run game back at them. Now, how did we do this? Jared Moskowitz realized he had a big problem and needed to fix it. As the head of Florida's emergency management department, he was already in charge of the response and had to contend with someone in his office leaking to a purveyor of what he called coronavirus disinformation. The person receiving the leaks was Rebecca Jones, a fired health department worker who earned national media attention for unsubstantiated false criminal allegations that Florida was not manipulating data. So here's the part that it's going to probably make a lot of people scratch their heads. So Moskowitz, a Democratic former state lawmaker appointed by Governor Ron DeSantis, said in an interview that he made the decision in July to reach out to Jones and befriend her. The best way to destroy an enemy is to make him a friend. Abraham Lincoln. See, what we did, and I'll give you the link to this, you can read the rest of this, is we ran game back at them. We found out who this Rebecca Jones was. We hired a Democrat to work on our behalf, get information, get on the inside, gain this person's trust, and then destroy them. See what we did there? See, people talk about rhinos. Believe it or not, there are actually dinos out there. Democrats in name only. It's an effective tactic because Democrats are so insecure by nature that anyone out there that they can find who's sympathetic, they will just fall in love with, especially someone who is working within a Republican or what they would see as their enemy's camp, so to speak. Because that would make them feel smart. That would make them feel like they were part of the resistance when really they were just getting played. And that's what we did. And this person has had their Twitter account deleted. They have been brought up on criminal charges and have been roundly, completely discredited. And all of the mainstream media that used this person, this Rebecca Jones, as a source, they now all have egg on their face. Every one of them. And this is how you do it. We would also like to, the Florida Maki, have you guys join us at night at Twitch. You see, Democrats are narcissists by nature. They believe that everyone who isn't a Democrat either just needs more education or they just need shut down and quieted. See, they can't win in the arena of ideas. They either make you one of them or you're just not allowed to speak. And we've seen this, right? Well, last night we had an event like this where in this new game that we've been playing, there are a lot of tasks to do. And they start to kind of pile up and you have to prioritize. Well, over in chat, we had a whole bunch of narcissists show up and say, no, do this first, do this. And it was literally just one of these things where people were just attempting to command me to do this and telling me why I was wrong for doing that. It was an interesting thing to see. It's a fun thing to watch. The game is a blast. But this is why I think a lot of the folks that have decided that they were going to prep for the end of the world as we know it or some kind of event coming, that they're going to be the first ones to fall. Because they've already planned it all out in their own minds, how things are going to go and how they think things should be and what should happen and shouldn't happen. And when they have to actually work in a group, and all of a sudden the group doesn't listen to them or doesn't do what they say, they're going to run off on their own. And we know what happens to people that run off on their own in survival situations. So anyway, it was an interesting thing. I had to kind of cut it short last night because it was reaching kind of a critical mass over in chat of people arguing and people giving commands. And there were others that were trying to take the chat over with their own personal conspiracy theories. So I guess that's just kind of the nature of the beast over here. But it's a fun game. It's about survival. And you really do have to put your ego aside and realize you've got to make priorities in a way that affect your best survival. Perhaps not your belief of how survival should be. Because some people want to think it's all about guns, or it's all about defense, or it's all about attacking this, or doing this. Or sometimes it's just about working together as a team. Some people would think that that is contradictory to something like this. It's not. See, everybody has their own individual desires. Everybody has their own individual vision of where they think they should go. For example, some liberal states in the past have used the states' rights argument, believe it or not, to advance their own agenda. Oregon with assisted suicide, Colorado with cannabis, even Pennsylvania went after the federal government because they were trying to close a National Guard base. And Pennsylvania said, nope, sorry, this is a state issue. And finally, the Supreme Court had to get involved and tell the federal government to back the hell off and see if they can negotiate, through mediation with the states on certain things. So it's really odd to see, because prior to this issue of 2020, states' rights used to be something that liberal states used to go their own way on policies that they perceived as perhaps not popular to Republicans and conservatives. Well, now that the shoe's on the other foot, all of a sudden, they want to rule by fiat from D.C. And as we can see, Biden is a giant coward, and he's not going to fight for them. And as you can see, Manchin has decided to do his own thing. And so they are just beside themselves, not understanding the nature of the country they live in. They don't understand the Constitution. By the way, you can look up Article 4 of the United States Constitution and read that. Republicanism in the United States and what states' rights really means and who has used it in the past and what for. So anyway, join us at Twitch, usually about 10 o'clock Eastern time each night. We'll play for at least a couple of hours, depending on the behavior of people in chat. And it's really a great adventure. It's a way to maybe end your day with some fun and to be able to interact. If anybody has questions for me, actual questions, not baited ones, not ones that you already have answers to, that you just want to use to push a narrative, actual questions. So, states' rights. It's the way to go. God bless. Like, share, subscribe, and we'll see you guys next time.